Stephen A. Smith has made a name for himself with his loud, unfiltered opinions and fearless approach to discussion. However, there are moments when he oversteps, such as when he criticized LeBron James regarding his son's draft into the NBA. Let's be real, Bronny James' entry into the NBA is largely due to his father's influence. He has also taken aim at NFL legend Colin Kaepernick during broadcasts. In my view, Colin Kaepernick holds no significance at all. Here are 11 occasions where Stephen A. Smith overstepped his boundaries. The racial slurs aimed at LeBron James. In December 2011, Stephen A. Smith became embroiled in one of the most startling scandals in sports media ever. During a seemingly standard discussion on First Take with Skip Bayless regarding LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, Smith uttered something that reverberated throughout the sports arena and beyond. He made the shot. "I'm just rolling away." The scene aired live, and audiences quickly understood what was said. Various outlets, such as Bleacher Report and HuffPost, verified that Smith employed the N-word while talking about LeBron James. The event was especially shocking as it featured a notable black media personality employing a racial epithet to refer to another well-known black sports figure on national TV. The situation grew even more concerning with Smith's reaction to the backlash. Instead of promptly owning up to the incident and expressing remorse, Smith refuted the allegations, suggesting that his rapid-fire New York vernacular was to blame. "I'm a New Yorker. I tend to speak quite quickly, leading to misinterpretations," he stated, insisting he would have issued an apology had he truly uttered those words. The matter was further complicated by the reality that this was not Smith's first encounter with such accusations. He had recently faced similar scrutiny during a conversation about LeBron James. The incident cast significant doubt on Smith's conduct while broadcasting and raised concerns regarding ESPN's obligation to oversee such occurrences. This case was distinct from his previous issues, as it notably featured no official apology from Smith, which intensified the backlash. However, if the use of racial slurs on a live broadcast was troubling, his subsequent remarks descended further, as he directed his commentary toward domestic violence victims. His comments regarding Ray Rice in July 2014 signaled one of the most detrimental times for Stephen A. Smith's professional trajectory took a hit when his remarks regarding domestic violence in relation to the Ray Rice incident drew significant backlash, resulting in professional repercussions and a week-long suspension from ESPN. This incident unfolded at a critical juncture in sports, as the NFL faced fierce criticism over its approach to domestic violence issues. We need to be cautious and avoid actions that might incite further violence. If law enforcement, whether it's me or others, intervenes after someone has harmed you, it doesn't erase the harm already done. Let's focus on ensuring that we prevent such situations from arising in the first place. The debate ignited during conversations around Ray Rice's initial 2-game suspension for reportedly knocking out his then-fiancée. In a First Take segment, Smith aimed to tackle domestic violence prevention, but his remarks quickly shifted into victim blaming, surprising both viewers and his peers. His claim that women ought to steer clear of provoking violence completely misrepresented the nature of abuse, shifting accountability onto victims instead of the abusers. The backlash was swift and harsh. ESPN's Michelle Beadle openly rebuked Smith on Twitter, stating, "Violence is not the victim's fault. It lies with the abusers. To suggest otherwise is both reckless and appalling." Step back. Her remark resonated with many who interpreted Smith's remarks as perpetuating dangerous stereotypes and possibly dissuading victims from seeking assistance. ESPN acted promptly, suspending Smith for a week starting July 29, 2014, indicating that even their most prominent figures were not beyond reproach for public missteps. Upon his return, Smith offered what many viewed as a sincere and thorough apology, labeling it as the biggest mistake of my career and admitting that his comments suggested blame towards women in cases of domestic violence. If you think he has grasped the gravity of discussing delicate issues, think again. Brace yourself, as the next uproar centers around the king himself and his family, LeBron's son controversy. In 2025, the intricate dynamic between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith hit a pivotal low point. Following Smith's remarks about Bronny James, which shifted from professional evaluation to what many interpreted as a personal assault on family, tensions grew amidst Bronny's early struggles with the Los Angeles Lakers. As a father, I implore LeBron James, please put an end to this. Enough already. It's clear that Bronny James made it to the NBA thanks to his father. On January 29, 2025, Smith's remarks on First Take implied that Bronny's entry into the league stemmed from favoritism instead of skill, particularly after a lackluster showing against the Philadelphia 76ers. Smith openly challenged the validity of the young player's accomplishments on a major broadcast, implying that Bronny would be better suited for the G League than the NBA. The controversy escalated significantly during a Lakers matchup with the New York Knicks on March 6, 2025. In a surprising turn of events that reverberated across the sports arena, LeBron James made his way to the sidelines and faced Smith, urging him to cease discussing my son. This incident transcended mere sports rivalry. It was a father defending his child against what he deemed unjust public scrutiny. Later on First Take, Smith reflected on the encounter, recognizing the heat of the moment and offering his rationale. He clarified that it wasn't just a basketball player confronting him, but a dad standing up for his son. After Smith took another look at Bronny's improved performance and admitted, "I may have been mistaken." Numerous critics believe his first remarks had overstepped ethical boundaries, an apology that felt insufficient. Although targeting a star athlete's child appeared to be the lowest point, Stephen A. continued to burrow deeper. Up next, we venture into the realm of baseball, where Stephen A. aimed to address the topic of cultural diversity. Disapproval of Ohtani's use of an interpreter. In July 2021, Stephen A. Smith ignited significant backlash with remarks about Shohei Ohtani that many viewed as both xenophobic and culturally insensitive. The comments came at a time of increased anti-Asian violence in the U.S., amplifying their impact and underscoring concerns around representation and inclusion in Major League Baseball. On First Take, Smith took issue with the Los Angeles Angels superstar for employing an interpreter during interviews, insinuating it detracted from baseball's attractiveness to American fans. He contended that the necessity of translation for the sport's leading star presented challenges for fan engagement, essentially stating that Ohtani's Japanese roots and language requirements made him less appealing to American audiences. The backlash was swift and intense. This remark surfaced on the same day Ohtani was scheduled to compete in the Home Run Derby, coinciding with a surge in anti-Asian violence nationwide, which heightened the outrage over Smith's statements. Reports indicated internal dissent at ESPN, with colleagues such as Jeff Pisson openly criticizing Smith for his thoughtless remarks. The Asian American community and sports media broadly denounced the comments as xenophobic and unwelcoming. Smith made several apologies addressing the criticism. He first took to social media, expressing that as an African American deeply conscious of the harm caused by stereotyping in this nation, I should have been even more attuned to these issues. Subsequently, he began First Take with an on-air apology, stating, "I sincerely apologize to the Asian community and the Asian American community. I was in the wrong. From xenophobia to simple ignorance, it seems Stephen A. Smith's list of controversies sought further diversity." The following event took place at a pivotal time in the realm of women's athletics. A humorous remark on women's soccer hairstyles emerged. During the 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup, Stephen A. Smith's statements exemplified the unfortunate biases that have historically affected the reporting on women's sports. This episode unfolded during a SportsCenter segment that was meant to honor the triumphs of female athletes on an international platform, but instead perpetuated negative stereotypes regarding women's dedication to sports. Stephen A. Smith commented, "I assumed she didn't want to ruin her hair." Stephen A. Smith's comment went unnoticed initially. Silence followed his first attempt. Unfazed, he reiterated his quip. The uproar started while covering a match between Norway and Germany, when Smith humorously remarked that German players averted their gazes during a goal to protect their hairstyles. This occurred during Game 4 of the NBA Finals broadcast, as Smith presented highlights from the Women's World Cup with analyst Tim Legler. When the segment featured a free kick leading to a goal where German players looked away, Smith seized the moment to make his joke, and lacking laughter, he emphasized it by saying it again. The joke faced immediate backlash as an oversimplified, implying that female athletes prioritized looks over their sports performance. Such remarks have historically been used to delegitimize women's sports, suggesting that female competitors are less serious or dedicated than their male peers. The response was quick, with ESPN colleagues like Megan Greenwell denouncing Smith's remarks, while social media users broadly criticized the comments. The outrage was especially pronounced given that it coincided with the largest all-female sports event globally, during which women's soccer was garnering significant recognition and respect. Smith later apologized on Twitter, clarifying that his offhand remark about a women's soccer team worrying about their hair was intended as a joke and not meant to offend anyone. ESPN issued a statement acknowledging talks with Smith, indicating he recognized the comments were out of line. One might assume that after offending women athletes, Stephen A. would take a step back. Nevertheless, he set his focus on a significant social justice initiative in sports history, targeting a quarterback who is advocating for change. Critique of Colin Kaepernick in 2017, Stephen A. Smith unleashed one of his most contentious critiques upon discovering that Colin Kaepernick, despite his prominent protests against racial inequality, had chosen not to vote in the 2016 presidential election. Smith's response was immediate and severe, leading many to claim it was hypocritical in light of Kaepernick's active commitments and the deep-rooted issues he was opposing. His condemnation of Kaepernick was particularly fierce, labeling the choice to abstain from voting as foolish and expressing a desire for Kaepernick to keep his distance. Smith contended that Kaepernick had betrayed his mission, branding him as a blatant hypocrite, implying that the quarterback's stand against racial injustice was compromised by his disengagement from the voting process. This incident shed light on the intricate relationship between activism, civic responsibility, and political engagement. Kaepernick articulated his decision not to vote by stating that he perceived both main candidates as entrenched in an oppressive framework a view that corresponded with his extensive critique of American systems. Conversely, Smith interpreted this stance as a core inconsistency that undermined Kaepernick's message regarding racial justice and societal change. The response to Smith's remarks was varied. Some endorsed his appeal for civic engagement, while others upheld Kaepernick's decision as aligned with his activism. Detractors contended that Smith failed to grasp the essence of Kaepernick's protest and his broader denunciation of systemic racism within American institutions, including the political arena. They asserted that urging participation in a system Kaepernick considered inherently unjust contradicted the comprehension of his message. Smith's severe language, especially his statement expressing a desire to stop hearing from Kaepernick, was perceived by many as overly personal and dismissive of valid political opposition. However, the plot thickens here. What occurs when Stephen's personal connections clash with his duties as a journalist? The upcoming scenario featuring a UFC president will illustrate just how complicated that situation can become. The Dana White case. In January 2023, Stephen A. Smith faced backlash for his remarks regarding a domestic violence situation involving UFC President Dana White. After a video surfaced showing White striking his wife during a New Year's Eve party, Smith's response drew significant criticism for being overly sympathetic, perceived as clouded by his connections and business ties. On First Take, Smith remarked that White should face consequences akin to those imposed on a UFC fighter for similar behavior. While he denounced the act, stating that a man should never hit a woman, critics argued that his overall reaction lacked seriousness, especially since he remarked on his personal friendship with White, saying, "I love the guy personally." Commentators, including Dan Le Batard, asserted that Smith's approach was far too lenient given the gravity of domestic violence. Reports suggested that ESPN's affiliations with the UFC, notably broadcasting rights, might have shaped the network's coverage, while Smith's personal rapport with White raised eyebrows regarding potential conflicts of interest. To witness them portraying a puppy dog demeanor, proclaiming, "I adore Dana White, his family is lovely, and we don't condemn him during his worst days," was telling. The situation worsened as Smith proposed that White should be the one to dictate his own punishment, which many found to be highly inappropriate. Critics contended that permitting someone who has perpetrated domestic violence to set their own consequences was inherently misguided. This incident sparked discussions about potential conflicts of interest in sports journalism and whether personal ties and business affiliations undermine fair reporting on grave matters, such as domestic violence. Speaking of complicated interactions with women, think back to our discussion regarding Stephen A. Smith's remarks. The latest woman in his crosshairs wasn't an athlete herself. She was merely wed to one. He took aim at Aisha Curry. Amidst the intense 2016 NBA Finals, which pitted the Golden State Warriors against the Cleveland Cavaliers, Stephen A. Smith became involved in a controversy that underscored the persistent issues surrounding gender roles and the expectations placed on women in the realm of sports. The situation unfolded when Aisha Curry, married to NBA star Stephen Curry, tweeted about the league being rigged following a contentious Game 6 defeat. On First Take, Smith took issue with Aisha's post, claiming she had crossed a line. His most contentious remarks involved an unfavorable comparison of Aisha with Savannah James, LeBron's spouse, remarking that Savannah refrains from making waves and commending her for remaining under the radar during games without criticizing the league. Smith faced backlash for his remarks, as many viewed them as outdated, effectively suggesting Aisha should be quieter and more compliant. In response, Aisha tweeted back, questioning why he was pitting two women against each other in that manner. "You're the one who's out of line." Her reply underscored the flawed nature of Smith's analogy and his effort to create rivalry between the two women. Outlets like Vibe and the Daily Beast condemned Smith's statements for upholding antiquated expectations that female partners of athletes should stay silent and supportive instead of voicing their own views. Detractors pointed out the hypocrisy within Smith's remarks, as male athletes and their partners generally face less scrutiny in their public conduct. While Smith faced no official repercussions for his words, the episode ignited wider conversations about gender equity in sports media and whether women should be expected to mute their opinions for the sake of their partners' careers. If you believe that advising wives to hush was out of touch, just wait until you hear how Stephen A. brought up one of the nation's most sorrowful racial events amidst a basketball chat. This upcoming player was blindsided. The hoodie remark regarding J.R. Smith. In October 2017, Stephen A. Smith sparked backlash with remarks perceived as racially insensitive when he took issue with NBA players, particularly J.R. Smith, donning hoodies on the bench, making an unsettling association with the heartbreaking death of Trayvon Martin. This uproar coincided with conversations surrounding Nike's latest NBA warm-up apparel, which featured hooded sweatshirts. Many among the white audience might view this as a return to the Trayvon Martin incident. During a radio tirade, Smith implied that J.R. Smith's hoodie might evoke memories of Trayvon, the young black man tragically slain in 2012 while wearing one. He mentioned Game 1 against Boston, claiming that white spectators could interpret the situation as a haunting reminder of Trayvon Martin's case. The remark was notably insensitive as it connected a common sports garment to a heartbreaking racial murder. J.R. Smith reacted sharply online, criticizing the insensitivity of the remarks and their appropriateness. This guy always seems to grasp at straws. How does my choice to wear a hoodie while seated relate to making white individuals think of Trayvon? Smith posted on Twitter. Numerous outlets, including Sports Illustrated and SB Nation, echoed J.R. Smith's views, highlighting that many NBA players sport hoodies and deeming the spotlight on him as misplaced. The situation received considerable backlash for perpetuating harmful stereotypes regarding black men and hoodies, instead of confronting the biases that contributed to Martin's demise. Detractors contended that Smith was effectively suggesting black athletes should alter their apparel to appease white audiences, rather than tackling the root racism fueling such responses. In an effort to clarify his statements on social media, Smith asserted he was targeting Nike's uniform aesthetics, not himself. However, this did little to ease the backlash. From racially charged remarks to this next revelation, championing a man with a known record of violence toward women, we turn to a case from 2010 where Mayweather was openly supported. Stephen A. Smith's inclination to back contentious athletes took a notably concerning turn in 2010 as he defended Floyd Mayweather during a time when the boxing star was embroiled in serious domestic violence accusations. This defense showcased Smith's habit of disconnecting athletes' off-field behavior from their professional successes, often neglecting to recognize the gravity of their alleged offenses. In 2010, Floyd Mayweather was arrested for domestic violence against his former partner, Josie Harris, involving an incident where he struck her in front of their children, culminating in what would lead to a 90-day jail term, of which he ultimately served 60 days. Numerous accounts reveal that Smith supported Mayweather during this time, setting a precedent that would later become increasingly apparent. This trend was unmistakably highlighted in 2015 when Smith joined First Take and proposed that Mayweather's accomplishments in the ring should be evaluated independently of his personal conduct, effectively arguing that one's sports success could be separated from their ethical integrity. Detractors, including outlets such as Deadspin and Complex, charged Smith with elevating Mayweather's fame above the seriousness of his ongoing misconduct toward women. Smith's defense raised significant concerns, particularly in light of Mayweather's long history of domestic violence claims, with at least 7 documented occurrences over the years. The remarks implied a disconcerting readiness to downplay or rationalize domestic violence perpetrated by prominent athletes. Smith faced no official repercussions for his 2010 position, yet his ongoing endorsement of Mayweather solidified his image as someone who often navigates contentious subjects. His defensive behaviors would emerge again in future domestic violence discussions, revealing a troubling pattern in his commentary on grave issues. Just when it seemed Stephen A. Smith couldn't complicate things further, he found himself on the wrong side of a major human rights debate in contemporary sports. This time, it was about an entire nation, the NBA's tumultuous relationship with China. In October 2019, Stephen A. Smith became embroiled in a controversy that exposed the clash between human rights activism and corporate interests in professional sports. This situation arose amid the NBA's tensions with China, sparked by a tweet from Houston Rockets GM Daryl Morey that voiced support for Hong Kong demonstrators. On his show, First Take, and his radio program, Smith took issue with Morey's tweet, contending that he should have weighed the business repercussions for the NBA and Rockets. Smith characterized Morey's actions as immature, asserting that mature individuals who understand the responsibilities of leadership do not cavalierly share their views on global issues without anticipating the fallout. This position was interpreted as placing financial gain above human rights, leading to fierce rebuke from comedian John Oliver during Last Week Tonight. Oliver charged Smith with suggesting that ignoring human rights abuses is acceptable if it benefits one's corporation. Smith's remarks were seen as tacitly endorsing the neglect of China's human rights concerns for profit. Additionally, Smith pointed out ESPN's policies, stating that network leaders had made it clear they prioritize sports over politics. He contended that employees must weigh their employer's priorities before making political statements publicly. The Washington Post observed that ESPN's stance on steering clear of political dialogue could have shaped Smith's perspective, yet his remarks were still seen as placing business interests above human rights advocacy. We appreciate your viewership. If you enjoyed this experience, continue your journey by selecting one of the recommended videos displayed on your screen for more incredible content.